Welcome to a special and short session of What's Going On Here with Bob Venn, if it's possible to have a short one. We're at the village office in Champlain, New York with our village trustee, Melissa McManus. Mrs. McManus, hi.
Hi.
We're going to do a little story on village water and a little survey they're taking. But before we do, we'll find out a little bit about Melissa McManus. Where are you from? And tell us a little bit about Melissa.
Well, I was born in Rouse's Point and moved to Champlain about 7 years ago now. And I got involved with the village board last year. I was elected in March last year. And my committee assignment was water. I'm the chairman of the water committee.
Wow, that is short. All right. Now, certainly your name wasn't McManus when you lived in Rouse's Point. Tell me, find people in Altona who your parents were.
Okay. My maiden name is Penfield. My mom is Teresa Penfield. And my dad is Raymond Penfield. And I grew up in Rouse's Point, went to Northeastern Clinton High School.
There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah, okay. Well, what got you on the village board? Why did you think you wanted to be in the village board?
Well, I guess my family was always involved in government service, politics, and I was always interested. And when we had two trustees that stepped down last year, I thought it would be a good time to run. I was interested in working for the village. I like the village of Champlain very much, and I enjoy the people. And I thought it'd be really fun to try to work toward the future.
Mm-hmm. You're married to Harry McManus.
I am married
teacher
to Harry.
at Northeastern. And you do what? Well, you're a teacher also?
I'm a teacher also. I teach 8th grade social studies at Beekmantown Central School. Some of my students will undoubtedly be watching this.
All right.
They tell me it's bad enough they have to put up with me at school. They go home, they watch TV, and there I am again. So.
Okay. Now, most of us have enough trouble with our job all day long without coming and practically donate. What's your salary? $400 or $600?
No, $1,700 a year.
$1,700. You're getting paid for this, and I'm not today, huh?
Right.
$1,700? Well,
I figure it works out to about 50 cents an hour.
Well, yeah, you're on that committee of, you say, water. You're chairman of the water committee,
Yes, I
which
am.
has got to be you probably get more phone calls about the water and or the sewer than anybody. I mean, you're also with the sewer committee, too?
No, I was not last year. Now
Okay.
we're having a reorganizational meeting.
Okay.
April 5th, so we'll see what I get this year.
But you weren't here when the old water system was
No,
here.
I was not. And in fact, the old water system went in around fall 1990.
Mm-hmm.
And the mayor, I guess, decided that he'd put me in charge of water because, I don't know if he thought people wouldn't yell as much at a woman or what.
You're the first lady on the school board, on the village board ever?
I believe I am in Champlain. Yes.
That's what I mean here, yes,
I think so. I think I am.
And do they yell at you as much because you're a lady or not?
No, people have been, in my opinion, people have been unbelievably patient.
Well,
I have not run into too many people that weren't very, very patient considering what they had to go through.
I don't think there's very many village meetings that Hometown Cable, Calvin, and or one of his people who are here taping has missed. And,
No.
and we know you certainly look very concerned at the meeting. You're not afraid to say your piece, pro or con, and we thank you for that. We seem to know what is going on, and then, we should. We're paying the bills, at least some of them. And you are also using the same water, by the way, I might add. You're drinking the same.
I drink it. I actually have really developed a taste for it. I think it was really hard for a lot of us because I grew up with surface water, growing up drinking lake water, and then we had the river water, and it took a while to get used to the well water, but I've really become a...
Now that you got a taste to it, do you bring some to school when you go to Beekmantown, or do you drink there? You drink there?
I drink their water.
You break down? Okay, Melissa, we were talking, of course we want to do a story here on our water system down below, and also the sewers and the rest of it. We've done the sewer system in Rouse's Point.
Right.
But you asked for a little bit of earlier time because there's a project coming up. Go ahead,
Right,
you got the floor.
I really appreciate your time and Calvin's time to do this.
Glad to do it.
Because we here in the village, we have a very important decision to make about what we're going to do with our water at this point. And so if you don't mind, I kind of put a few things together
Absolutely.
that people need as background information. As you all know, the water system went in the fall of 1990. We have 3 wells up on Canal Street, and we pump water out of those wells, chlorinate it, and then send it out to the distribution system to homes and businesses. And we serve about 650 water customers.
Do we alternate on those wells, or do they all come in at one time?
No, we alternate.
We
The
do
pumps
alternate.
alternate, and we alternate from the wells.
All right.
That's right. They're set to schedule. And they pump based upon the demand in our tank up on Prospect.
So it doesn't come directly to our house.
Well, yes, it's kind of... It does sometimes, and then sometimes it's pumped up to the tank and it comes down from the tank.
Okay.
But the whole system works off the pressure in the tank up on Prospect Hill. Now, right from the beginning of the new water system, and actually I think it got worse for a time, residents had a lot of problems with the water. We had rusty water, we had sand-like residue, scale forming in pipes and in furnaces and hot water heaters, and people have had a lot of expenses due to that. And then the hard water nuisance things like spotting in your dishwasher, you wash your car, it has white spots on it. Most of the problems we've had come from the mineral composition of the water. It's when you look at what's in the water, it's very predictable what's going to happen. And so I thought I'd just quickly go through what we found in our water analysis and then talk about some treatment options. As a municipal water system, we have responsibility to test for different kinds of contaminants, bacteria, organic compounds, and those are really some of the nasty ones for health concerns. And then the primary contaminants, the heavy metals. And the good news is in our water, by the criteria that the health department, the EPA, local board of health use, we have very healthy water. No bacteria. We have not had any positive bacteria testing, which is a big improvement over our river water because it was, we had to chlorinate it very, very heavily because of the bacteria count. We have no trihalomethanes, which are the nasty organic chemicals that form in water, and they're carcinogens. So it's really good that we don't have, not even detectable amounts of those. And then we have no heavy metals, silver, arsenic, lead. It doesn't even go on the scale when we send the water to be tested. So from those three standards, it's very, very healthy to drink. The bad news is that we have a high mineral content, and that's what I made these kind of little signs up so people could take a look. Okay, this first sheet is total dissolved solids. Basically, it's a measurement of how much minerals are in the water. And you see the count of 682 milligrams per liter. If you have over 500, you're going to get a well water taste because you're going to taste the minerals that are in the water. And so when you add up the calcium, the magnesium, and the sodium, we come up over 500, and that's why you have a well water taste. Okay, and that's not, there's no health concern. In fact, if you look at it, in general, hard water, they think, is better for you than soft water.
Well, now, Melissa, all the farmers outside who have their own wells, do they have a well taste like this?
The water that they have out in the town, I would say must be very, very close to, a lot of it's coming from the same aquifer, depending upon what you have in the ground, the minerals in the ground.
What's an aquifer?
It's a kind of a large underground stream of water that we drill down into and hit with our wells to pump the water.
And that'll be at different levels at different places?
Right,
that's why you have to dig deeper in some places than others? Okay.
Depending upon the mineral deposits it's running through, you're going to get different kinds of minerals. But that's the reason for the well water taste.
Okay.
Okay?
What does well water taste like? Is there a taste?
I think there's a taste. I don't know. It tastes
that hasn't been a
good.
problem. The problem is, like you say, the staining and,
which
the
is,
other things.
This is our culprit on the staining.
Okay.
Iron and manganese are the two minerals that cause the rusty water or the dark brown or even black water. Our two concentrations, we average about 0.42 milligrams per liter of iron and 0.14 for manganese. You add it up, it's 0.56 milligrams per liter. And what the waterworks standards tell us, if you have over 0.50, you're going to have some staining problems, some rusty water problems.
So we're 0.56?
0.56, right?
And
average.
over 0.50 is a problem.
Right. And so that's why we went to the sequestering agent to try to wrap around the iron and the manganese to keep it from settling out and causing the rusty water. I'm going to talk a bit more.
Now you weren't here when they were checking these wells out. Is this much like it checked out when they were doing it?
Yes. When they drilled the wells, they did get some results on the minerals that we were going to have high mineral content, that the iron and the manganese were going to be high. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that we always got the best advice from outside the village on what the effects of that would be and what how severe the problems would be.
And we got to also realize that we don't have a licensed engineer working for the village that would recognize these things unless someone told us.
That's right,
And if
exactly.
you may not even think to ask, that possibility?
Right. Well, at that time we did have an engineer that was working for us, but apparently it didn't get communicated very clearly.
Certainly, if 50 point, of course, it could have been a little bit different in this too,
And
right?
it does vary. I'm giving you averages based upon tests because, it varies a bit, not much.
All right. Well, let's just take a short break and we'll be right back. You're watching Hometown Cable, the short version of what's going on here. We're at the village office in Champlain and we're talking to one of the trustees. The trustee that's dedicated to getting us good and better water, Melissa McManus. Okay, what does this show? It's hardness.
Okay, this is really the culprit that's bothering everyone at this point. The hardness of the water is a measure of how much calcium and magnesium there is in the water, and this is what causes the hard water problems, the scaling, the buildup you get in pipes. It's often stained rusty because of the high iron we have, but the actual scale is coming from the calcium and magnesium. And this is what we need to decide what we want to do with. It's measured in milligrams per liter, or I guess more commonly in terms of grains per gallon, and our water averages about 14 grains hardness, which is definitely hard water.
Hard water, okay.
No doubt about it.
All right.
Okay, and the final measurement that I know people are very concerned about is the sodium in our water. People who have high blood pressure and are on sodium-restricted diets, I know, are very concerned about the amount of sodium. And we have 135 milligrams per liter, which is a pretty high concentration compared to other municipalities. We're well below the state guideline of 270 milligrams per liter for people with sodium-restricted diets. We're at about half of that.
But that still is high, you
It
say.
is high compared to other water, especially compared to surface water, it's high. It's interesting, when I've gotten very conscious, I guess, of sodium. I was driving home drinking a V8, and I was looking at the back of it, and my 10-ounce bottle of V8 had over 600 milligrams of sodium. So you have to kind of put it in perspective. You could drink four quarts of our water and get about the same amount of sodium as in a 10-ounce thing of V8. Milk has about 120 milligrams in an 8-ounce serving. A slice of bread is about 114 milligrams. So it is high compared to other places, but as far as, worrying about, unless you're on a very severely sodium-restricted diet, unless you drink an awful lot of water, I wouldn't think it would be too much of a problem. But certainly it impacts the way we can soften water, and that's something that,
Okay. There's nothing we could do with the water in the ground.
No.
You can't change that.
No.
And do we know whether it might change from time to time in the ground?
It typically, from what I've been told, it might change. It shouldn't change drastically, but there might be changes over time in the aquifer. We notice a change, believe it or not, from well to well. It's interesting, they're very close together, unusually close together in our well plot up on Canal Street. But out of the different wells, because of the depth, we do draw different amounts of minerals.
So you deliberately drilled them at different depths?
I don't know that it was done purposefully. One of the wells, they ran into a sand problem, and so they had to adjust the depth on it. I'm not sure exactly.
It's hard to imagine these rivers, quote unquote, under the ground that are running.
I hope I'm describing that,
Well,
but that's
but
the way
that
I
basically
picture
is. It's a reservoir of water down there that's being replenished regularly.
Right, and it's wonderful because it's a natural filtration system. As the water seeps down through,
That's the rainwater.
right, it cleans out all the impurities, at least the airborne pollutants, and you end up with, very clean water.
Have you any idea how far we've gone down in our wells?
Off the top of my head, I would say about 130 feet, approximately. I think that may be the shallow one. The other one's maybe.
And we're down nearly level with the river, where the well
It's
is.
been built up a bit, but it's close.
Basically, okay.
15 feet above maybe.
Okay, so we have two things to settle. The hardness and the sodium, right? Or
Right.
the iron. The
Well-
hardness, the iron, and the sodium.
Right,
Okay.
we have to keep the sodium in mind, definitely. Because of the problems that residents were facing, early last spring, before I got on the board went out for bids for a water treatment system. And they asked manufacturers, engineers to come up with a solution to the problem. We opened the bids once I was on the board in April, and the problem was they were so contradictory. They ranged anywhere from $35,000 to $300,000.
The price to determine what's wrong?
Right, to actually to build something to fix the system. And some people said it was the hardness of the water, other people said it was the iron. Some people said if we fixed the hardness, we'd make the iron worse, and vice versa. So they had ideas from magnetizing the water to a complete, water softening system. So at that point, the board decided that we needed to get in someone with a lot of expertise to work for us. And we went out and we did a search, and we hired an engineering firm from down in Schenectady, John McDonald Engineering.
I think we saw that on TV. That was on TV, right? When he was here, when
Oh,
he was
yeah.
putting his proposal and so forth.
Right,
Okay.
right. And he had a lot of municipal experience. They only work for villages, which we really liked, and they're a small firm. You can pick up the phone and say, look, we have a problem, help us out. So that's been really good. So with our new superintendent, Bob Sullivan, our engineer got together and they came up with a plan to try to treat the iron and manganese problem. And what we're doing, we're adding a polyphosphate called Aquamag to our water, and that is a big long chain of molecules that just wraps right around the iron and the manganese so they can't oxidize. So you end up with iron, but it stays in solution and it doesn't turn rusty, and you don't end up with the staining of clothing and some of the other problems.
You do this where, Melissa?
Right at the pump station.
Right at the pump station.
Right.
All right. I hope you're going to get sooner or later here to where what individual homeowners have done or could do versus.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Go ahead.
Okay. And so that we really, the complaints, I have a folder here of complaints that we asked residents to call in so we could know what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to report they have just, the rusty water problems, knock on wood, have basically stopped.
At least the complaint.
The complaints. And
Okay.
I've called people, and other trustees have gone out and talked to people that had problems, and people are reporting that what we're doing for the iron and the manganese is working. At least, laundry, that sort of thing. But people are still upset about the hardness of the water. So we decided we would go out and ask people what the public thinks we should do on water softening. Now, there are two basic options. Either the village softens at the source, just like we put in the Aquamag, we run the water through a softening system, or individual homeowners make their own decision about whether or not they want to soften water in their homes. That's really the choice we face.
And the softening would stop the staining and things like that?
Well, that's a question. The softening would stop the scale buildup in
All right.
pipes.
Yes.
It would stop the white spots that you get on your dishes.
Oh, yes.
And we have glass doors in our shower, and
Yeah.
you get the water sprays off and you get spots all over the place. You wash your car. My daughter loves to, there are two things she loves to do: sweep driveways and wash cars. So she'd come in and she'd say, "I don't believe this. I just washed the car and it's all spotted." It would take care of that, because what happens, it's an interesting process. It's really kind of simple. You run the water through the softening unit, and in the softening unit, there are these little beads, and they're coated with either potassium or sodium. And as the water goes through, the calcium and magnesium stick to the beads. The sodium or potassium come off. It's an ion exchange. And so the water that comes out has a much lower concentration of calcium and magnesium. So basically the water is softened because those two minerals are taken out. The problem with that, for us, sodium, which is the lower cost way of softening, to me is out of the question. If we softened our water with sodium, it would about double our concentration.
Up to the 270,
It'd be
which they say
close,
is...
240, 250, 260, It would be, as far as I'm concerned, too close, because people wouldn't have a choice. When they turned on their water for drinking water, they would get softened water. And I guess people out, that buy individual water softeners often leave their drinking water faucet off so they can just drink, regular water and then soften the rest. So I really feel that it would be very intrusive for people who are worried about sodium to have to drink the water with the sodium.
Any idea how many people that would be?
Well,
Out of a given 100 or 1,000?
I don't know. The one thing I do know, my mom used to work at Harris, and we were talking about this, and she said they used to do blood pressure screening at Harris. The nurse would do it, and that a lot of the men that used to work at the shop had a blood pressure problem. So I have had a lot of people talk to me.
That's because men are married to women, Melissa, and we get a higher blood pressure because of that.
Okay, well, whatever the explanation. I think it works both ways.
Now, when you do this, of course, what happens is you're softening the water for the toilet, the shower, the washing your clothes, and the 2% or less that you actually drink or make coffee with is the problem.
Exactly.
Is that basically what you're saying?
Exactly. That's the real concern that people have, and people are very worried about this. I've had a lot of people who are on restricted diets, and just in conversation say, I'm really worried about the sodium in the water, and I think they would be doubly worried if we doubled it. I talked to Dr. Southwick about it because I wanted to have somebody locally, and that was his big concern about sodium.
Is there anything that an individual could do after you put sodium in it? To take it out before I drink it?
It would be expensive.
It would be.
Taking the sodium out, yeah, it would be. It would.
Okay.
It would mean, I think, putting in a separate filtration unit in their home.
In your home.
It would be like they would have to spend as much to reverse the softening as they would to soften their own water.
All right. All right.
Okay. The good news is we have another alternative, and that would be potassium softening. Works the same way. It's a little more expensive. It's about salt-wise, it's about 50% more expensive, but on the whole thing, it's not that much. And potassium actually, it might work better for us because some communities, when they soften with potassium, they find their sodium levels actually drop down in the water. So that might be good. We could get some.
And potassium is good for a lot of people.
Very good for you.
You could stop eating bananas.
That's right. And as a matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned that because if we did soften, if you drank about 2 quarts of water a day, you'd be getting about as much potassium as there is in one banana.
Do you drink 2 quarts of water a day? Does anybody?
Well, that's the guideline they use. I think a lot of people do drink a lot of water, but I think they figure cooking and other coffee and different beverages when they say 2 quarts.
All right, yeah.
And the only thing about that is, in speaking with Dr. Southwick, people who are on special kidney treatments and do take a potassium supplement, we would have to notify them because they wouldn't want to have too much potassium in their diets.
See, these are things, I'm sure, that you people out there, including myself and Calvin, we just don't realize. You're saying, fix it, fix it. There's a lot of more than just going out and fix it. You have to get into these things that I'm sure nobody knew about when we started drilling wells.
No.
Talking about potassium, sodium, to take care of hardness, etc.
No, and plus we haven't even talked about the expense yet. Which
that's a big one?
Yeah, that's
all right.
That's the big.
Well, seeing the village is going to pay for it, not the individual. It's not so bad.
Oh, wouldn't it be nice if it worked that way? Sometimes I wish that we had just had this big pot of gold out the back we could dip into.
Well, we've got, I guess we have, people say we ought to go back to the river like we were before, and I don't think that was healthy. I don't really think that was healthy. We were immune to it over the period of time, but you moving in the village and others, it was bad.
The biggest thing is the amount of chlorination we had to do to kill the bacteria. We had a real high coliform bacteria count.
But it was soft, right?
It was soft.
It was soft.
Soft water, that's true.
Didn't leave spots.
No.
Where I noticed the spots was when my wife went to Florida and I'm doing my dishes and things. We got a steel sink, and aluminum. And I would, I know I cleaned it well, and there's these spots. I said, what could possibly be dripping onto it? Then I realized it was the little droplets, that were there when I went to bed that would leave these spots.
Right. I think in the next 10 years we're going to be very glad that we went off the system, the water from the Great Chazy, because the EPA, Department of Environmental Conservation, they're really tightening up on surface water when you use lake or river water. The filtration requirements are going up. They're really getting strict about it. And I really think that was a lot of why they went with well water.
Okay. All right, let's move along to whatever else here.
Okay,
What
the
comes up now? The
cost.
cost. Let's take a short break before the cost, so you can get your cup of coffee and sit down if you're standing up before we hear about the cost. Because I don't know anything about these figures yet myself. I'm just as new to this as you are, right out there. We don't prepare anything, do we?
No.
Not a bit.
No.
I've caught you off guard a couple times so far.
Yes, you have.
All right. Well, that is working.
Yes.
Thank you much for watching Hometown Cable. What's going on here? Melissa McManus, Bob Venn, Calvin Castan on the camera. Champlain Village Hall. Look at the nice map behind us. This is old Champlain, 1873. Now that everybody's sat down and they're going to hear all these big prices you've got or whatever it's going to cost us. And it's not funny. I'm going to be paying like everybody else, and so are you.
That's right.
But it's for progress, I guess. And go ahead, tell us.
Okay, well, because of the amount of an investment it would be for the village, and because the year-to-year costs are pretty high for softening, we decided that the best thing to do would be to put out a questionnaire in our water bill. So the April 1st water bill that'll be coming out, I guess the end of next week, will have in it this questionnaire. And we're asking, basically what we're doing is just telling residents about the choice we're making, trying to list the pros and the cons of softening, and then giving them a picture of what it would do to water and sewer bills.
Okay.
And at the bottom, we've just asked a question: do you support the village building a system to soften the water?
Right. Are you down to just the one system, potassium, and you've forgotten about the
Yes,
sodium at
in
this
order
point?
to try to make it as simple as possible.
Okay.
We did, because I personally I would be very opposed to going with sodium softening. I really feel like we would be.
Yep.
It's not fair to those people who do have to worry about their drinking water not to be able to drink our water.
Right now, I noticed, wow, we're getting advertising here, Calvin. It says, for more information on this important issue, please watch what's going on here on a certain date, I guess. Well, now, will this be out before this coming Sunday?
Well, it may be, if we're going to broadcast on Sunday, we may be on before the questionnaire comes out, so I may
Okay.
have to delete that on my
Okay,
computer.
well, either way, if you watch this show, it'll be on 4 more times if you're watching the first one. Tell your friends and neighbors, and you could probably explain what's happened or record it or something. Melissa's trying to be as forthright here as possible about the water problem. And what she's going to tell you now about money will make... Now, will this have anything binding on this?
No. Oh, that's a good question. What we're telling people that if we go ahead and do this, it would raise, to the best of our knowledge, water and sewer bills 15 to 25%.
The sewer bill, too?
Well, I figured, then that's the way I calculate. It would raise water costs between 40 and 50%, but I figured most people... I look at my bottom line on my sewer bill. I couldn't tell you how much I pay for water versus sewer, but I could tell you how much I write the check for every quarter.
All right.
So I thought we'd do it from the total of the bill.
The total of the bill, including the $55 flat charge,
Yes,
that's going to go up 25, 50% also?
yes.
Not
The whole bill would go. We would have to decide where we would put the cost, but overall, the village would have to bring in 15 to 25% more in the water and sewer bills to pay for this. And I'll explain to you where how
So
that
you're
breaks
talking
down.
anywhere from $15 to $25, give or take, every 3 months, or anywhere from 7 to... Well, go ahead. Maybe
Okay.
you've got it.
Okay. There are 2 different kinds of costs that we would have to pass on to village residents. First one is the capital construction cost, actually building the treatment system. We'd have to build a building. We would have to buy the big softening tanks. I'm not sure what DEC would let us do as far as disposing of the brine, which is the stuff you backwash out of your system with all the minerals in it. In speaking to them on the phone, they prefer that you build this big lagoon, a drying lagoon, where you backwash it in there, it dries out, and you can wash some of it into the river. They said 40 to 50,000 for that. So it's things like this that really bring the cost up. The best I could figure to build it would be about $150,000 just to put the whole system in, and that I can see going to $300,000 if things don't work out right. I mean, we're looking at being able to sell more water outside the village because we have a lot of growth taking place, and we have some outside customers. I think we'll have more. We're going to need to build a system that's big enough to plan, for the next 10 years. We don't want to spend 150,000 and end up with something that's too small the next day. So that may increase the cost. There's a possibility we'll have some pressure loss, and I really feel like we'd have to make up for that some other way, because we have, a few homes where the pressure's borderline right now. So there are a lot of questions that would have to be answered. I could see again, the cost being up to 300,000. So no matter what happens, we'll go out to a referendum on this. It will go out to the voters to see whether, we want to go ahead and incur this kind of cost. The year-to-year operation is actually as high as the capital cost. It would increase our bills about 13% for the sodium softening, the potassium softening. So altogether, if we've got our best case scenario, I think assuming the average person pays $110 a month in their water and sewer bill, it would raise their rates about 20%. It would raise their bill. Now, if you look over 20 years, because we'd be probably borrowing for 20 years, it's $1,411. And I guess what you have to do is compare that to what it would cost an individual to go ahead and soften. From what I've heard, the systems run about $1,000, and then you have your upkeep on it.
So you're telling me after 20 years, the capital would be gone to the prices, which I wouldn't have to worry about too much. I won't have to worry about that going down. But all right,
but
so the alternative is to do your own, or nothing.
Depending upon where you are, I think a lot of people want to do something. I mean, I know going through this whole process has really made me decide that if the people in the village don't want softening, I think that I'm going to have a talk with Harry, and I really think that we should think about it at our house, because we had to replace our hot water heater, and we have had some pipes that have had the scale, and I think in the long run it's probably more expensive not to soften than it is to soften, because hot water heater $600 right there.
Of course, you don't know, Melissa. Everybody's in favor of something until they realize it's going to cost them something.
Right.
But if you want something, you're going to have to pay for it.
You're going to have to pay, but
are we sure it's going to work?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, now, what guarantee do we have, if any? As I recall, on a meeting one night here that Hometown Cable had copied of the village, someone said that our last job, they didn't guarantee the quality of the water. That came up, and I said, what a ridiculous thing to have signed, that they didn't guarantee the quality of the water when you're paying all the money we paid.
I'm afraid we've learned a lot, about dealing with large engineering firms and contractors and what you have to look for in a contract. I mean, let's face it, the village was really very badly burned. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And anybody who's watched our board meetings knows the battles we've had with the people that put in both our water system, and we've had problems with our sewer system too. We would have to have guarantees. One proposal I looked at, they guaranteed it in terms of grains of hardness, that they would take us from 14 down to 6, which puts us down in the comfortable, moderate range, because you don't want to go way down to 0. It makes the water corrosive if you take it down too low. So you have to, you end up with kind of a happy balance.
Now, that's done by the amount of potassium you'd put in or take out
right.
while it's working?
And we wouldn't soften probably all of the water. Not all water would go through. You'd get a mix of treated and untreated to kind of balance it out.
Do you have to have someone down at the plant physically doing this all the time?
No. It would be an automatic system that would. The one that I looked at, it backwashes, which is really the only big thing, about once every day and a half. So about every day and a half after the water's run through, it shuts down. You go into the other tank, and it rinses back through, retreats with potassium, and then.
Now, we sell water to people outside of the town, of the village rather, in the township, various water districts, and we get double the price that we get in the village?
That's right. We get double, and in fact, it works out to be even higher than that, because most of our outside users are commercial, and they pay about three times what an inside the village water.
Their rates will also go up to 15 to 25% also?
In our water.
If mine goes to 120, they use the same amount, it'd be 240?
In our water and sewer contracts that we just signed with our new water district, we have the right to raise rates proportionately. So if it goes up 10% here, we could raise it 10%
That's not my
outside.
question, what you could do, what you will do.
Oh, I can only speak for myself. I really have to take a look at it.
Okay.
The concern with the outside users is we don't want to make our water so expensive or our
No,
wastewater
but
so
on the other
expensive.
hand, if we are putting in $300,000, $400,000, that why should I have to pay it to make theirs better at the same price that we're paying before it got better?
Right. Oh, I understand,
You
and
know,
I think that's certainly
this is our water; it's not their water.
right. And I
know?
think that's certainly something that we would have to take into
I realize
consideration.
but that gets to a point. But on the other hand, it makes our water pretty expensive here too. You know.
It does. What I'm hoping is that we can, as we can increase the amount of our water we sell, we have a tremendous water reserve. I mean, we're only using about a third of what we're permitted for by the Board of Health. And if the more we can sell, the lower
Yeah.
the cost for everybody in the village. And that's,
It'll never lower. It just won't go up so high so
well,
fast.
wouldn't it be nice? I mean, ideally, if we could end up selling a lot more outside water, then maybe we could do some of these things without having to raise the rate too high. That's what I guess I would kind of.
Okay. All right. Well, anything else you want to cover, right?
No, just one more time on the questionnaire that we're asking people to send these in with their water and sewer bills, and that we really are anxiously awaiting the results. And based upon what we hear, I think if we hear a lot of yeses, then it's time to really sit down and take a very serious look at softening, get all our questions answered, come up with a proposal, get an amount, then we go out to referendum and see if the
What
vote-
time frame are we talking about? Something like that? Any idea?
Oh, it's one thing I've learned about being on the board, that things always take 3 times longer than I thought they would. The bills aren't due until April 30th. So let's see, we wouldn't have all the results until the end of April. To do a good look at the whole problem and come up with an engineering scheme that we all agree on, I would say that would take a couple months. Go out to bid, that's another month. I don't, with any luck, we might be able to do something by the fall, but
Okay.
that's a question mark.
I haven't read this yet, but on the bottom it does ask you for a yes or no and comments. Now that little space is not meant for you to restrict it. That's all the space there is. But the back is absolutely clean.
Exactly.
And I would think that Melissa and anyone else would not want you to put a check mark in yes or no without some remarks.
Exactly.
Your remarks will be read. They will be record of it made some way. If you've got something to say it. Just don't say you're doing a poor job. That doesn't tell you a thing. If you got any ideas, put them down.
Right.
Make your comments known. She's been as forthright as possible today. Is there anything else you want to add to
No,
this?
just that,
Melissa?
as you said, and if people would like to call and express their concerns to me directly or to anyone on the board, that's fine. I think from reading the board, really we're very neutral on the issue. If the residents want to soften, then we'll go ahead and we'll do it. If residents don't, then that's
Right.
fine.
Well, I'm a late go to bedder and a late riser. What's the latest to call you at home in the evening, Melissa?
Well, let's see. We get calls, I would say up until 10 o'clock.
All right, 10
When
o'clock,
you have a
that's-
teenager in the house, you
All
get
right,
calls.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock
When the
fine.
teenager isn't on the phone, you can reach the phone number or call here at the office, and
Right.
Melissa will get back to you. It's a way they're explaining it again here. Please tell your friends and neighbors. There's about how many water users?
About 650
Okay.
people, households or businesses we sell water to.
We hope that this will be on a crawler or something ahead of time, that you knew this was coming on, and that you will are watching this, and because I think it's very important that we understand you can't get anything for nothing, and the only way to make this water stop the spots, etc., is to do either the sodium and or the potassium, and sodium's
Right.
out because of health reasons. Pretty well.
Unless, if everyone, if we get 99% of the village saying, forget it, we want the sodium, then
And we'll
look
buy our
at
drinking
it.
water.
Right, we would look at it. But
Okay.
it's one thing we should say. The cost let's say that it's going to cost 20% increase in bills. That would be higher for people that use a lot of water and a little lower for people that don't, because I think we bill on the per thousand. Now I lost my train of thought and I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, the sodium would be probably 3 to 4% lower cost. So if it's 20, softening with sodium might bring us down to 16%.
Okay. Both the 16 and the 20 are estimates.
Everything
They're not in
yeah.
concrete, like it said, you're somewhere between
Right.
15 and 25.
And I wish I could make it more specific, but to do that I would have had to hire someone and pay someone. I figured, why spend the money if if residents say we don't want to do it, why spend the money doing getting an engineer to do an estimate for
Okay.
us? So that's why I took what I thought the very least it could be and the most it could
Okay.
be.
Now, as she mentioned, over 20 years it would probably cost $1,000,
If we
give or take.
I would say probably the best would be maybe about 1,400.
1,400. Now, the job as a trustee pays $1,750. If you think you can do a better job and want to get your 1,400, you can run against Melissa or someone else on the village board, and you take the heat the next time it comes up. How's that? I'm not trying to get challenges for you, but
That's okay. I have a year. I still have a
you
year
have a
before I
year.
have to worry
But
about
you
it.
have done something, and it is working its way towards something.
I feel like we've made some progress.
Okay.
And, I hope we can put this whole issue behind us, because I'm concerned when I leave, go outside the village and people talk about Champlain water.
I do.
mean, to me, I think, I hope people would be, not turned off from buying a house here. The water you turn on your tap, you talk to most people now,
Yeah.
it's hard water, but it's clean, it's healthy, and I hope it wouldn't, we can kind of clean up our reputation.
Okay. Anything else, Melissa?
No, thank you very much. I
You're
really
very
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Calvin offered to do this, and it's a special. We're adding it to our other show we have tonight on what's going on here. As you know, Hometown Cable, Calvin Castine and his brother Sam are out there with the cameras all the time, and he has other help, trying to get everything possible in the area that you'd be interested in seeing, so you'll know what is happening in our area. And last night I was mentioning to Melissa, I was watching a 10th anniversary of the Correctional Center in Altona, New York. I'd read about it in the paper. I didn't know it had been covered by Hometown Cable. And there was an old 1987 Memories game from Beekmantown. Both, one is 6 years old, and the other was only 2 weeks old. It was both on at the same time. And another thing, if you've got an extra $12, you don't know what to do with, just once a year even, $12 or more, become a patron for Hometown Cable. So this type of a program where we can bring you up to date like this and other things, Hometown Cable, Box 180, Champlain, New York. And thanks very much for your comments and for watching Hometown Cable. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.